Everyone in Eastborough knew one thing for certain. Julian Ashford, heir to the Ashford fortune and the crown prince of high society, was hopelessly in love with Serena Blake, the country's biggest rising star. No one expected what happened next. At my engagement party with Serena, she got a call. The next moment, she left me, without hesitation. The reason? Adrian had been injured. She ran to him. 2 days later, she married him. And just like that, I became the laughingstock of Eastborough. It wasn't until after I died that I finally understood the truth. I had never been anything more than a stand-in. A convenient placeholder for the man she really loved. But I've come back. And this time, I'm wide awake. Let someone else play the fool. I'm done being the collateral damage in your twisted love triangle. Julian, I'm sorry, Serena said, her voice trembling but her eyes already somewhere else. I think I still love him. I can't lose him. She clutched her phone like a lifeline. Then came the blow. The engagement's off. Let's just pretend today never happened. Right there. In front of 100 guests. In front of my parents. In front of the entire Ashford legacy. The room erupted. Whispers surged like wildfire through the marble ballroom. Every guest was someone powerful, someone with a last name that opened doors. Now they stared at Serena like she'd just lost her mind. I must still be dreaming. Did I seriously just witness Julian Ashford getting rejected? Is she insane? Marrying into the Ashford family would have saved her from that miserable grind in showbiz 10,000 times over. Then again, he's chased her for years, someone else murmured. Maybe he couldn't go through with it. And if she sheds one tear? You watch, Julian'll cave. He always does. He'll be the one comforting her by the end of the night. The buzz of whispers from the guests was deafening, drilling into my skull like a migraine. I glanced across the room, casually, disinterested. Silence fell. Everyone knew better than to push me. In Eastborough, I was notorious for my temper, and more importantly, I was the sole heir to the Ashford dynasty. That kind of power kept people cautious, reverent even. Well, everyone except Serena. They weren't wrong, you know. I was her emotional punching bag. Every time she needed something, or whenever Adrian, her beloved ex, shattered her heart, I'd show up like some lovesick fool, ready to pick up the pieces. I'd comfort her. Patch her up. Only to watch her run straight back into Adrian's arms with that same stupid smile on her face, while I stood there like an idiot, shattered. 5 years. 5 damn years of playing that role. And now that I think about it, I want to slap my past self. Twice. What a pathetic loser I was. But not anymore. Because I've been given a second chance. I've come back. Back to the day Serena and I were supposed to get engaged. And this time? I swear, I'm rewriting the whole damn story. Serena caught wind of the murmurs in the crowd. Her expression faltered, just for a second, before she snapped her head toward me with that familiar commanding tone. Julian, take care of things here, will you? I don't want this turning into a scene. She added, like some royal issuing orders, I have something urgent to deal with. I need to leave. Now. I rolled my eyes so hard I nearly saw my past life flash before me. Oh, so we're still playing this game? You really think I'm still that idiot who followed you around like a lost dog? Who exactly are you barking orders at, Serena? And urgent? Really? She just heard Adrian was in the hospital, dramatic as ever. The reality? A shallow cut. Barely broke the skin. The doctor even joked they almost arrived too late, the wound had already started healing. She turned to leave. I stepped in front of her. Instant irritation flooded her face. Julian, stop it. You're wasting your breath. I'm not marrying you. No matter what you say, I won't be your fiancé. I've told you so many times, I don't love you. I never have. It's Adrian. It's always been Adrian. And I have to see him today. She paused, then added with a haughty twist of her lips, don't follow me anymore. Adrian wouldn't like that. I let out a laugh, sharp, stunned, incredulous. Wow. That switch-up was Olympic level. Wasn't it just months ago that you were sobbing, begging me to marry you? Fine, I said, voice cool as steel. As you wish. I won't chase you again. But I have one request. I leaned in, meeting her eyes without blinking. Let's hope you, Miss Vale, have the same discipline. And never chase me again. Because if you do, I can't promise I won't lose control. And I don't hit women. But I might make an exception. Serena froze. She looked at me like I just slapped her across the face. Hard to blame her. After all, I used to treat her like glass, something precious, delicate, untouchable. I never raised my voice. Never pushed back. She was my sun. My obsession. I coddled her. Protected her. I let her hurt me. Not anymore. I strolled past her slowly, deliberately, and took the mic from the event host, who looked like he had no idea whether to stop me or step aside. I cleared my throat. Thank you all for coming today, I began, voice steady. Turns out, you're not here to witness an engagement, but a breakup. There was a stunned pause. I'd like to publicly end my relationship with Miss Serena Vale. She once begged me to marry her, but, looking back, I regret ever saying yes. So today, I'm calling off the engagement. You heard that right, this is goodbye. Clean cut. No lingering ties, no messy aftermath. The silence shattered. The ballroom exploded with murmurs, louder than before. Is Julian Ashford heartbroken, or finally seeing clearly? 5 years, and just like that he moves on. I don't buy it. No, look at him, he means it. Come on, she's just a celebrity. Pretty face, short shelf life. Why would a man like Julian risk it all for someone like her? Someone laughed a little too loudly near the back. Well, looks like Julian's single again. Out of my way, I'm going after him. Serena's face flushed white, then red, trembling from head to toe as she pointed a shaking finger at me. Julian. You've gone too far, you, how dare you do this to me? Too far. I let out a cold, incredulous laugh. This wasn't even a scratch compared to what she and Adrian had done to me. Don't worry, Serena. The show's just getting started. I reached forward slowly and took her hand in mine. A flicker of hope sparked in her eyes. Her shoulders loosened, the corners of her lips almost dared to soften. Julian, she started, trying to reclaim her usual edge, I'm really angry this time. And don't think I'll forgive you, even if you get on your knees and beg me, unless you. Beg? Me? Is she out of her mind, or does she think I still am? Her words caught in her throat the moment she realized what I was doing. I slid the custom engagement ring, crafted for her and her alone, off her finger. Her gaze locked on mine, confused. I smiled. Genuinely. No. Don't get the wrong idea, I said softly. I just came to take back what's mine. As for the other gifts I've given you over the years, keep them. I don't care. But this ring? I paused, held it up between us, then looked her dead in the eye. This ring was never yours to keep. And with that, I turned and flicked the diamond ring into the marble fountain behind me. A perfect splash. Gasps echoed across the courtyard. Serena's face turned the color of storm clouds, dark, ugly, furious. Breaking news. Julian Ashford, Eastborough's most eligible heir, and A-list actress Serena Vale have officially called off their engagement. The announcement came in the middle of their lavish engagement party, where Serena publicly rejected Ashford. Within the hour, Julian Ashford himself confirmed the split, and made it clear there would be no reconciliation. Entertainment outlets had a field day. Headline after headline lit up the internet like fireworks. My assistant, Mason, stood next to me, phone in hand, speaking as if each word might set off a landmine. Should I get PR involved? We could push this down in the algorithm, spin a different angle. I shook my head. No, I said. Let them talk. I want the whole world to know. He blinked, hesitated. There's already a new headline climbing to the top. I glanced over. Mason's face tightened. He turned the screen toward me. Serena had just posted on Instagram. The caption? Just one line. He proposed. 7 years of love, and we finally made it. The photo? Adrian. In a hospital gown. Down on one knee, holding out a ring like some goddamn rom-com climax. And just like that, Adrian reposted the image to his own feed. The comments came in like a tidal wave. Oh my God, this is true love. I'm sobbing. She gave up marrying into wealth for love, Serena's the real deal. Instant follow. Adrian is everything. I hope they last forever. A real-life romance between a superstar and Eastborough's rising prince. Can someone please make this a movie already? I let out a cold, bitter laugh. Of course. Of course they'd spin it into a fairy tale. Then I made 2 phone calls. The first was to Grant Whitmore, the director of Crimson, one of the most anticipated films of the year. Grant wasn't just anyone. He was a heavyweight in Hollywood, the kind of name that came with golden statues and standing ovations. Every film he touched in the past few years had either swept awards or dominated the box office. Crimson was his passion project. His Oscar shot. And up until this morning, the lead role had already been cast, Serena Vale. To be honest, aside from her looks, Serena's acting was mediocre at best. Her sudden rise to stardom had little to do with raw talent and everything to do with the machine behind her. Me. I had greased the wheels, pulled the strings, made the calls. I got her in those rooms. I landed her this role. Let's be clear, the only reason Grant had agreed to cast her, despite knowing she'd be a weak link, was because the Ashford family happened to be bankrolling the entire film. But here's the thing. If I could give her the part, I could just as easily take it away. I picked up the phone, calm as ever, and said, Grant, I've been thinking. Serena's not right for the role. She's just not strong enough as an actress. Let's replace her. There was a 1-second pause. Then came Grant's voice, barely containing his relief. Thank you, Julian. God, yes. I've been praying you'd say that. The second call I made was to Damien Cade. Adrian's older brother. The Cade family had only recently clawed their way into Eastborough's inner circle. They were considered new money by most standards, still miles beneath the Ashfords, but strong enough to matter. Adrian, however, was their bastard son. And the only reason he'd managed to outpace Damien and get named heir? Because Damien had a weakness. When he was a kid, he'd been in a terrible car accident. Lost both legs. He wore prosthetics now, high-tech, barely noticeable, but their father never truly saw him the same way again. Damien spent years trying to prove himself, working harder, pushing further, just to earn the old man's approval. And all he got in return was ice-cold indifference. You can try all you want, his father once told him. You'll never be enough. At least your brother's a whole man. It broke something in Damien. Eventually, he gave up trying. He and I were cut from the same cloth, Eastborough's infamous trust fund terrors. We drank too much, laughed too loud, chased everything that glittered. Naturally, we got along. The call barely rang once before he answered. Julian. What's up, man? You calling to drag me out for drinks? Just say where, I'm in. His voice was hoarse, still thick with hangover. I sighed. Disgusted. Frustrated. Still drinking? Jesus, Damien. Do you even realize what time it is? What, you calling to yell at me now? No, I snapped. I'm calling to ask if you're really gonna hand over your family's entire fortune to Adrian, the bastard, without even putting up a fight? You honestly okay with that? There was a pause. Then came a whiny, hungover protest. Damn, Julian, what's with the attitude? Chill, man. Have you looked at the news this morning? No. Just woke up. Hang on, I'm checking now. Silence. Then suddenly, from the other end of the line. A strangled shout. Holy shit, Julian. You're actually doing it? Damien blurted. I've been saying Serena wasn't worth it for years, but you wouldn't listen. 5 years chasing her like a damn ghost. But now? Man, now you finally woke up. This calls for a celebration. He was right. Everyone with eyes could see Serena wasn't worth it. Everyone but me. I spent half a decade falling harder and harder for her, blind to everything and everyone else. But not anymore. Not since I came back. 5 years ago, Serena was just another nobody, barely a name on the entertainment circuit. I first met her at an exclusive private club. One of those members-only places where billionaires played and secrets never left the walls. That night, every woman who walked in was dressed to kill, heels, smoky eyes, red lips, dripping with designer seduction. Except her. Serena. She wore a simple white dress, clean and soft. No heavy makeup. No forced smile. Just a stubborn tilt of her chin that screamed she didn't belong there, and didn't care. She stood out like a snowflake in a room full of diamonds. I like that one, said Trent Holloway, the Holloway heir, as arrogant as he was entitled. Got that bite in her. I live for the ones who need breaking. He motioned for her to come closer. Come have a drink with me, sweetheart. Serena's jaw tightened. She took the glass from the tray, stepped forward. And tossed the drink right in Trent's face. I'm not here to be anyone's toy, she said, voice cold and steady. She turned to leave. But before she could take 2 steps, someone blocked her path. You think you can walk away? Trent's voice dripped with venom as he stepped in front of her. You humiliate me and think you get to just leave? You have any idea what people say about me out there? He grabbed Serena by the back of the neck, forcing her chin upward so she had no choice but to meet his gaze. The crowd didn't gasp. They cheered. She's got no clue who she's messing with, someone chuckled. Nobody crosses Trent Holloway and walks away clean. Ballsy little thing, another murmured. Let's see how long that attitude lasts. Trent basked in their attention, smirking as he let the whiskey in his glass spill onto the marble floor in front of her. You know, he drawled, I actually like your face. And I'm not a cruel man. I could let this go. He bent slightly toward her, tone laced with mock generosity. All you have to do, is get on your knees. Lick the floor clean. Then make me real comfortable. Do that, and I'll forget any of this ever happened. Laughter rippled through the onlookers like wildfire. Trent's being downright merciful tonight, someone called out. You better take the offer, sweetheart. Serena's face didn't flinch. Not an inch. She spat, hard, right into Trent's smug, waiting face. You disgusting pig. A hush fell over the room. Trent's eyes flared. His pride, his ego, splattered across the floor with her spit. "You little bitch," he roared. "You think you're better than us? You think I wanted you for anything other than a quick?" He didn't finish the sentence. He raised his hand, fury twisting his features, ready to strike. But before Trent's hand could come down on her, mine stopped it. His wrist snapped midair, caught in my grip. Trent turned, livid. "Who the hell?" He froze. "Julian?" I dusted my hands off slowly, deliberately. Then stepped between him and Serena, placing her behind me. "She's with me now," I said, voice calm but unshakable. "Don't touch her again." Trent tried to recover. "But Julian, she..." I raised an eyebrow. "Just one. You have a problem with that?" His mouth snapped shut. Just like that. Trent Holloway might bully half of Eastboro, but in front of the Ashford family, he knew when to back down. I turned to Serena. "Let's go." She hesitated, eyes wide, stunned. But she didn't argue. She let me lead her out of that club like the whole place hadn't just frozen in our wake. I'd seen scenes like that before. Girls getting dragged, humiliated, cornered. It happened all the time in our world. And I never got involved. Why would I? None of it was my problem. But that night? Something in me snapped. Some idiotic spark of righteousness, or maybe weakness, flared. I stepped in for Serena. At the time, I thought it was just impulse. A random moment of decency. But by the time I realized what was happening, I was already in too deep. I chased Serena hard. Recklessly. For 5 years. She said her family was struggling with money. I showered her with gifts, always with some excuse attached, always pretending it wasn't charity. She once gave me a cheap stuffed animal, probably from a street vendor. I kept it on my nightstand like it was a sacred relic. She wanted to be famous. I opened doors. Threw money at producers. Pulled favors with agents and directors. I forced an average actress into stardom, because that smile, that rare, fleeting smile when she was happy. I lived for it. I knew from the beginning that Serena had a boyfriend, someone she'd been with since college. Naturally, I had him investigated. Adrian Cade. A bastard son from the Cade family, new money, still clawing for relevance in Eastboro's elite circles. I barely gave him a passing thought. I didn't see him as a threat. Why would I? I was Julian Ashford. He was just a footnote with a pedigree problem. Besides, Adrian already had a fiancée. His relationship with Serena was a ticking bomb, and I was convinced she'd walk away from him eventually. Walk toward me. I believed it with every fiber of my being. But I was wrong. I underestimated Serena. She could endure far more than I thought. His neglect. His jealousy. The constant fights over their messy, illicit affair. She took it all. I nearly gave up on her more than once. Came this close to walking away for good. But every time she showed up crying, bruised, betrayed, unraveling from something Adrian had said or done, I crumbled. I always did. I'd hold her while she sobbed. Patch her back together in silence. Kiss her forehead and tell her she deserved better. And then I'd watch her leave. Back to him. It became a cycle. Their endless breakups, their passionate reunions. And me? I was just the place she came to heal. The warm, reliable harbor where she could hide until her storm passed. Looking back now, it's crystal clear. She never let go of Adrian. She just kept me close, just in case. What I once mistook for love, for softness, for vulnerability, was nothing more than manipulation. She was playing both sides. And God, I was blind. I didn't see her for what she truly was. Not until it was far too late. Damien was quiet for a long moment. Then, slowly, his voice hardened. "Why the hell would I hand over everything my mom and Howard built to him?" he said, venom rising. "That bastard doesn't deserve a damn cent. He wasn't there through any of it. It's just. Howard always saw me as broken. Damaged. I lost my legs, and suddenly I wasn't a son anymore, I was a disappointment. And Adrian? He gets to walk in perfect and pretend he's air material." I could hear the rage taking shape in his throat. For once, it wasn't masked by whiskey. "You're not wrong," I said. "But don't just talk about it, Damien. Do something. If you've still got any fight in you, I'll stand behind you." There was a beat of silence. Then Damien exhaled like someone who'd finally come up for air. "Julian, you saying that? I swear to God, I'll give this everything I've got. You've got my loyalty. For life." "Good," I replied, keeping my tone cool. "Then stop running your mouth and do what I asked. You've got work to do." I'd barely hung up before my phone lit up again. I looked at the caller ID, and nearly dropped it. My heart jerked. "Mom. Catherine Ashford." I scrambled to answer, breath caught somewhere between dread and relief. "Julian Ashford," she barked, voice hitting like a grenade the moment I picked up, "have you completely lost your mind? You thought you could sneak behind my back, and your father's, and get engaged to that cheap little tramp without telling us? If it hadn't hit the goddamn news cycle, your father and I would still be sitting here in blissful ignorance. You think if you just went ahead and made it official, your father and I would have no choice but to accept Serena into this family?" My mother's voice was fire and steel. "Let me make one thing very clear, Julian. As long as your father and I are still breathing, that woman will never be welcome in the Ashford family. Too bad. Because in my last life, Serena did marry into the Ashford family. Over my parents' dead-set objections. And it destroyed more than just my pride. But that little tramp had the nerve to reject you? In front of everyone?" Catherine's outrage crackled through the phone. "My son is exceptional, exceptional. She should have been groveling. Instead, she slaps you in the face? No. No, absolutely not. That girl needs to be taught a lesson. You and your father stay out of this," she snapped. "I'll handle it. My way." I pulled the phone slightly away from my ear, rubbing at the ringing it left behind. Then I smiled, slowly, proudly. "No need, Mom. Not this time. Because this time." I walked away. "She'll never be part of this family. Not now. Not ever again. You have my word." There was a long silence on the other end. Then, finally, my mother exhaled, her voice softer than I'd heard in years. "Well, I'll be damned. You've finally grown up." Yeah. I had. But God, the cost of growing up. It had nearly broken me. In my last life, I was lying in a hospital bed when I got the news. My parents had died in a car crash. And standing at my bedside, hand in hand, were Serena and Adrian. Serena leaned in, her voice soft, almost pitying. "Julian, it's okay now. You can let go. Your parents are waiting for you." She smiled. As if it were mercy. "I didn't want to do this," she added with a sigh. "But they never liked me. Always picking at me, treating me like I'd never be good enough. I tried, I really tried." Adrian stood next to her, grinning like a man who'd just won a war without ever firing a shot. "Don't worry, Julian," he said. "The Ashford inheritance? Serena and I will take good care of it. In fact," he added with a smirk, "I should thank you. This is one hell of a parting gift." Even now, just remembering their smug, twisted faces makes my hands curl into fists. But this time, they wouldn't get that ending. Not even close. They have no idea what's coming. I miss you and Dad, I told my mother. I'll come home tomorrow. In my last life, I never made it. Never got to see them one last time. That regret had hollowed out something permanent in me. Funny you say that, she replied. That's why I called, we have a little surprise for you. A surprise? I teased. Don't tell me you and Dad had a baby while I was away. I've only been gone a year. Don't be ridiculous, she snapped playfully. Just get home. It's a big surprise. And this time, you better show up. The next morning, I left early, too early, really. I couldn't wait to get home. And that's when I walked straight into the surprise my parents had promised. A woman was standing in the entryway, elegant and poised. Hi, I'm Julian, I said, stepping forward and offering my hand like any decent gentleman would. Elena, she replied, her voice soft. She placed her hand lightly in mine, graceful, cool to the touch. We held for only a second before letting go. Our eyes met. Neither of us spoke. It hung there, a silence too thin to be comfortable. My mother glanced at me with an expression that screamed disappointment. Julian, she muttered under her breath, you're a man. Say something. Anything. Then she turned to Elena with a beaming, overly enthusiastic smile. Don't mind him, dear. He's just a little shy. Let's not stand here, come in, come in. Breakfast is ready. We followed them inside, but I hung back with my dad, whispering out of the side of my mouth. You could have warned me it was this kind of surprise. I wouldn't have come home at all. Richard gave a grunt that was halfway between a laugh and a snort. Smartass, he muttered. You're not getting any younger, you know. After wasting all those years on that woman, it's about time you found someone who actually deserves you. He paused, then added with a pointed glance. Your mother and I are still waiting on grandkids, you know. I just escaped one mess, I muttered. Not eager to dive into another. Richard gave me a sideways glance. This isn't a mess, son. Relax. Elena's a good one. He paused, then added with a touch of pride, she's the daughter of an old friend of mine, someone I trust. You actually met her once when you were kids, but her family moved to Switzerland years ago. Just came back recently. Your mother and I looked into her, he continued. She's kind, well-mannered, runs her own business, never relied on anyone. And she's young, but already managing part of the family enterprise. She's more driven than you ever were, he added with a grin. If you two end up together, and she's by your side, your mother and I can finally stop losing sleep. He paused again, this time letting his voice drop just slightly. There's one more thing. It doesn't matter to us, but I'm curious what you think. Elena was once engaged to someone from the Cade family. That made me stop walking. Richard raised an eyebrow at my sudden stillness, but kept talking. Some idiot from that family broke off the engagement, for a celebrity, no less. Can you believe that? Gave up a future with Elena to chase some tabloid drama. He scoffed, disgusted. Foolish kid. But hey, worked out for you. If he hadn't been so stupid, this girl would have never landed back in your orbit. Cade family. The word hit like ice water down my spine. I narrowed my eyes. Which Cade? Richard rolled his eyes like it was obvious. Which one do you think? That Cade family. The one grooming their bastard son to take over the business. Elena was engaged to him. God knows what her father was thinking, offering his daughter to a glorified mistake. His face curled in distaste. And just like that, everything clicked. I almost laughed. What were the odds? This world really was too damn small. Elena, the same Elena who had once been engaged to Adrian. I remembered it clearly. Back then, Serena had thrown a tantrum over the engagement. She'd come to me crying, begging me to intervene, to sabotage the Kate-Elena union before it was finalized. I didn't do a thing. Part of me was waiting, hoping that this would be the final straw that would push her to break things off with Adrian. The other part? Even I, reckless as I'd always been, knew how tangled high society marriages could get. Dynastic unions weren't love stories, they were political treaties. I had no interest in sticking my neck into that particular mess. Now here we were. Richard was still talking beside me, gently pushing Elena like a product on sale, clearly worried I'd find something to dislike. What he didn't know, and what I wasn't going to tell him, was that Adrian had called off the engagement because of Serena. But that wasn't Elena's fault. None of this was. And I had no intention of punishing her for the sins of others. Elena, I said bluntly, once we were alone, I assume you didn't exactly volunteer for this arrangement. She blinked, caught off guard. Excuse me? Let's just call it what it is, I said. Neither of us signed up for this. No need to keep pretending. We go our separate ways. I didn't wait for her reaction. I'd had enough of forced pairings and hidden motives. Earlier at breakfast, I couldn't help glancing at her from time to time. Catherine misread it as interest, of course, and beamed with joy when she told me to take Elena out shopping. Elena had smiled politely, playing along. Now, standing on the sidewalk, she turned to me and said with a touch of dry humor. I heard the legendary Julian Ashford was always gentle and accommodating to his exes. What did I do to deserve the cold version? I stared at her, flatly. That's not funny. The smile disappeared from her face. Well then, Elena said, tone crisp, since you're being so straightforward, I won't dance around it either. I want to work with you, Mr. Ashford. Julian, I corrected, lifting an eyebrow. And if it's business you're after, I'm not the one to pitch. Everyone knows I haven't taken the reins of the Ashford empire, yet. She shook her head, calm and resolute. No, Julian. This is a deal that only you can make. Her gaze didn't waver. Then, word by word, measured and cutting, she said. Because we're both victims in this story. Now that got my attention. I leaned in, intrigued. Go on. Serena humiliated you publicly, because of Adrian, she said. That wasn't just a breakup. That was a declaration of war. She chose him and made sure everyone saw it. She took a breath, steady but cold. And Adrian? He proposed to Serena before he'd even formally ended his engagement to me. That wasn't a mistake. That was a message. To you, she added, and to me. I watched her, silent, as her words fell like polished knives. We've both been used, she said. So here's my offer. You help me take Adrian down. And I'll help you put Serena in her place. What do you say? She extended her hand, confident I'd take it. I didn't hesitate. I smiled, and shook it. Well then, I said, to our partnership. With that, I found myself, willingly, walking beside her through the boutique-lined streets of Eastborough. Shopping had never been my thing. But today, for the first time in a long time, I had purpose. What I didn't expect was just how perfect the timing would be. As we passed by a bridal boutique, Elena suddenly stopped walking. Her gaze locked on the display window. I thought maybe she'd spotted a gown she liked, something elegant, something soft. I was about to offer, half-jokingly, to buy it for her in true Ashford fashion. Then I looked closer. Inside, beneath the delicate glow of showroom lighting, stood Serena. Wearing a wedding dress. And Adrian, of course, standing beside her, smiling like he owned the world. So, they were getting married. How civilized. Well, Since fate was kind enough to seat us at the front row, it would have been rude not to say hello. I pushed the glass door open and stepped inside, Elena right beside me. Julian? Serena turned her head and caught sight of me. Eyes wide. Voice breathless. She grabbed the hem of her dress and ran toward me, completely forgetting Adrian's presence. Or the storm brewing on his face. I've been calling you non-stop, she said, clinging to my arm. Why haven't you picked up? You're still mad about the engagement party, aren't you? But come on, you embarrassed me in front of everyone, too. Let's just call it even, okay? She blinked up at me, pouting like we were still in high school. Then, as if rehearsed. Julian, I got a call from Grant, the director. He told me I'm out. They replaced me. Can you please talk to him? Fix it? I turned down a huge studio project just to do this film. It's everything I've worked for. You know that. You'll help me, right? Ah. There it is. The real reason. She'd said a dozen things, but only one mattered. Not the missed calls. Not the fake apology. Not even the dress she was wearing. What mattered was the job she lost. Because of me. And yes, she had called me. Over and over. I just never answered. On purpose. I looked at Serena, her face so full of fragile hope it was almost pitiful, and slowly exhaled a single, measured sentence. You must not know, Miss Vale. Grant only recast the lead after I called him personally. Her smile faltered. What are you saying, Julian? I'm saying, I replied, I made the decision to replace you. You were never the right fit for the role. I gave her a glance as cold and clinical as a casting memo. Your acting's average, at best. This project deserves better. Her composure cracked. Julian, please, she said, voice trembling. You're still angry. I understand. I shouldn't have rejected you like that. Not in front of all those people. I wasn't thinking. She reached for me, like muscle memory. A reflex she hadn't unlearned yet. I'm sorry. I really am. Can't you forgive me? I stepped back, avoiding her touch. And then, just to twist the knife, I flicked my gaze to Adrian, whose expression was practically vibrating with fury. Careful now, I said smoothly. We're in public. You do still have a fiancé, don't you? That did it. Adrian stormed over and yanked Serena back by the wrist, planting himself squarely in front of me. If you've got a problem, he growled, take it up with me. Leave Serena out of this. She chose me. His voice rose. His pride flared. Just because your family has power doesn't mean you get to do whatever you want. The Ashfords don't run this whole damn city. And the Cade family, he added, isn't afraid of you. I let out a short, humorless laugh. You should pay closer attention, Adrian. It's not me chasing Serena. She's the one still clinging to me. I leaned in slightly, just enough for him to feel the chill behind my voice. And thank you for the reminder. Because just like I took care of Serena's little career, I'll deal with the Cade family too. In my last life, Adrian had a hand in my downfall too. How could I ever forget? And now, here he was, clinging to Serena like a man who thought he'd won. Funny. I had just promised Elena I'd help destroy them both. Serena turned quickly, trying to smooth over Adrian's anger. Adrian, please, she said with exaggerated sweetness, loud enough for me to hear, you know I love you. But I still need Julian's help, just this one time. Ah. There it was. No shame. No subtlety. Just, desperation, gift wrapped in sugar. Did she really think I was still that fool from 5 years ago? She looked at me with a pleading expression, voice soft and coaxing. "Julian, just help me this once, okay? You've helped me so many times before. What's one more?" I stared at her, momentarily stunned by the sheer audacity. And then I almost laughed. "Everything I did for you in the past?" I said slowly. "Forget it. You don't even need to thank me. Let's just say I was being generous." I stepped forward, lowering my voice. "But as for now..." Before I could finish, a crisp, commanding voice sliced through the boutique. "Now, Julian is my man. So I suggest Miss Vale show some restraint." The room turned. Elena had arrived. She stood tall in sleek heels she hadn't been wearing a moment ago, God knows where she'd changed, and her presence hit like a gust of wind through a room full of stale perfume. Gone was the reserved politeness. In its place, fire and steel. "And considering you're already engaged," she added, her eyes locked on Serena, "you might want to ask yourself how your fiancé feels about you begging mine for help." Both Serena and Adrian froze. Their expressions shifted from arrogance to confusion, then to something dangerously close to panic. Adrian turned to Elena, disbelief plastered across his face. You're with Julian?" he stammered. Elena didn't flinch. "And what if I am?" she said coolly. "Do I need your permission to live my life now? Who are you to me, Adrian? A mistake? A memory?" Her voice dropped like a blade. "And don't call me Elena. It makes my skin crawl." She walked over and slid her arm through mine, her grip possessive, deliberate. Then she turned to Serena with a look so smug, it might have cracked glass. Serena pointed a shaking finger at Elena, but her eyes stayed on me, brimming with tears that had always come far too easily. "Julian. I can't believe you'd do this. You brought her here? Just to hurt me?" Her voice cracked into a tremble. She used to throw herself at Adrian. She's pathetic. A manipulative little. Smack. The sound rang through the boutique like a gunshot. Elena's hand had already withdrawn before Serena's had even finished snapping to the side. A red, angry welt bloomed instantly on Serena's cheek. Elena flexed her fingers, then winced slightly, rubbing her palm. "I didn't hold back," she murmured. Adrian lunged forward, putting himself in front of Serena like a shield. "Leave her out of this," he shouted. "If you've got a problem, take it out on me." Smack. Another hit, this time across Adrian's stunned face. He reeled from the force, and before he could recover, Elena let out a light, unbothered laugh. "Oh, don't worry," she said, her tone almost playful. "I was just getting to you." I stood there, stunned for half a second. Then I let out a low whistle and gave her a thumbs up. "Damn," I said with a grin. "That was impressive. Really. You've got my full respect." I leaned in slightly, voice teasing. "Take notes, will you? This is how you deal with people like them, you don't hesitate, you hit back." Honestly, if the Davenport family had been half as ruthless as Elena, they wouldn't have needed my help taking Adrian down. Serena and Adrian were both fuming now, faces flushed, pride shattered, logic gone. They lunged. Elena and I didn't move. I simply raised my voice, calm as a breeze. "Where the hell are the mall security guards? You all still want a job or not?" Seconds later, a dozen guards came sprinting in from all directions. They swarmed Serena and Adrian, pulling them back with professional efficiency. The couple screamed, shouted, fought, but it was no use. After all, the entire shopping complex belonged to the Ashford family. I turned to Elena. She dusted off her sleeve with a quick flick of the wrist. "Well," she said, bored now. "This got dull fast. Let's go." And just like that, she walked out, heels clicking on marble tile, every step cleaner than the last slap she'd landed. I followed behind her like some loyal sidekick. Because let's be honest. This woman? She's not someone you want to be on the wrong side of. Ever. The next time I saw Adrian, it was exactly 1 month later, at a high-profile business gala hosted in the city's most exclusive ballroom. He was standing near the bar, decked out in a custom-tailored suit that screamed money and desperation. A glass of wine in hand. A smile too polished to be sincere. "Mr. Shaw," Adrian said, voice low and oiled with charm, "I thought we had a clear agreement on this project. These new terms, this sudden price hike, it's a little unexpected, don't you think?" Shaw looked at him like one might look at an insect on a linen tablecloth. "I wasn't negotiating with you," he said flatly. "I was negotiating with your father. Cade Sr." He took a sip from his drink and gave a dismissive wave of his hand. "And you? What are you, exactly? A mascot? A shadow?" He smirked. "Or are the Cades really scraping the bottom now, sending out a bastard son to handle billion-dollar deals?" Adrian's jaw tightened. The smile stayed on his lips, but his eyes turned cold. His lineage, his dirty little birthright, had always been the one thing he couldn't scrub clean. And now, here it was again, dragged into the open under crystal chandeliers and silver trays. Public shame in a three-piece suit. He hated it. Hated them. Hated me, probably, without even realizing I'd been the one cutting every string. Ever since his father handed over the family reins, Adrian had been bleeding deals like a stuck pig. One after another, contracts that had been nearly signed, suddenly slipped through his fingers like silk. Coincidence? Of course not. But Adrian didn't know that yet. Not really. He was just starting to feel the cracks. Now he stood there, rage simmering under skin, while still forcing that courteous, Cade-approved smile. He took a long breath, steadying himself. This deal? This one couldn't fall through. Because if it did, and if his father found out, that heir title he clung to so tightly would vanish just as quickly as it had been given. Adrian's mind drifted to Damien. His half-brother had been strangely productive lately. Out of nowhere, the guy had dropped the drunken nights and expensive mistakes, trading them in for boardrooms and balance sheets. Adrian didn't know how or why, but Damien had suddenly started acting like he gave a damn. Howard had only tossed him a small, underperforming side company, more of a consolation prize than anything serious. But within a month, Damien had flipped its valuation tenfold. 10 times. People were starting to talk. And Adrian knew his father well enough to know. If the numbers kept climbing, if Damien kept this up, even a pair of prosthetic legs wouldn't stop Howard from reconsidering the line of succession. Because when push came to shove, performance always outweighed pedigree. Adrian swallowed the bitter thought and forced his face back into something resembling a smile. "Mr. Shaw," he said, voice straining for authority, "you may not know this, but I've already assumed full control of Cade Enterprises. So naturally, this deal falls under my jurisdiction." He straightened his tie, his pride curling its last muscle. "I've made my offer. If you're not interested, someone else will be. No need to waste both our time." Shaw raised an eyebrow. Unmoved. Adrian's teeth clenched, nearly cracking. "Fine," he said. "I'll sign." He took the contract and scrawled his name without blinking. The price was outrageous, so far above margin that the Cade family would barely scrape profit. But he had no choice. Too many deals had collapsed already. And with Damien climbing fast, he couldn't afford to stumble again. Not even once. I'd been watching the entire exchange from across the room. And when the moment was just right, I made my move. I approached with a calm, easy stride, swirling the drink in my hand like I had all the time in the world. Mr. Shaw, I said casually, I hear you've got a pretty big project in the works. Thought I'd ask if the Ashford family might have a seat at that table. Shaw's face lit up like a man handed a second chance at life. Mr. Ashford. What an honor, he said, smiling so wide it almost looked rehearsed. Word is you've recently started taking a more active role in your family's business. Congratulations are in order. He hesitated, glancing toward Adrian. That said, I've already come to terms with the Cade family. We're just about to sign. And, well, you know how it is. One shouldn't go back on one's word, right? I lifted my glass, gave it a lazy swirl, and smiled. Whatever price the Cades offered you, I said smoothly, Ashford will go 5 times higher. I didn't blink. Didn't flinch. Now the question is, I continued, do you have the appetite for something bigger, Mr. Shaw? For a split second, Shaw looked like someone had thrown cold water in his face. Then he came to life. Mr. Ashford, you really don't mince words, do you? He said, laughing nervously. Truth be told, I've been hoping for a chance to work with your family. Timing just hadn't lined up, until now. Across from us, Adrian's eyes darkened like a storm cloud. He shot me a glare that could have shattered glass, then turned quickly to Shaw, pasting on a desperate grin. But Mr. Shaw, he said, voice syrupy with panic, we had a deal. Business is about trust. If word gets out that you backed out at the last minute, that kind of thing doesn't go unnoticed, you know? The moment the words left his mouth, the temperature dropped. Shaw's smile vanished. His eyes narrowed. You threatening me, boy? Adrian froze. Shaw took a deliberate step closer, voice dropping to something colder. You think you can lecture me on reputation? One word from me and you'll be finished in this town. Don't test me. Adrian's face went pale. He opened his mouth to backpedal. But Shaw was already walking away. He turned back only once, addressing me with a nod and a handshake. Mr. Ashford, he said firmly, we have a deal. I returned the handshake without hesitation. Looking forward to it, Mr. Shaw. Pleasure doing business. Adrian stared at me like he wanted to rip me apart. His eyes were wide, wild, and furious, jaw clenched, fists balled so tightly his knuckles cracked like dry ice. Julian, he growled, voice low and shaking with rage, these past few weeks, all those deals I lost, was that you? I didn't blink. It was, I said simply, letting the words settle. You're just now figuring that out? Damn. Guess you're even slower than I thought. He shook with fury. His hands trembled at his sides, and for a second, I thought he might really do it, might lunge at me right there in the middle of a ballroom surrounded by every billionaire and board member in Eastboro. I watched him closely, smirking. You thinking about throwing a punch? I asked, my voice light. Right here? At this event? In front of everyone? You really want to give Daddy Howard a reason to yank the crown off your head? He didn't answer. But I could see it all, playing across his face like an open book. Panic. Pride. Self-preservation. His expression twisted through a dozen shades of restraint before finally, going still. Adrian took a breath. Then he looked me dead in the eyes and said, let's make a deal. I'll give you Serena back. Walk away. No more games. I'll cut ties with her completely. All I ask, is that you let me go. For a beat, I said nothing. Then I laughed, quietly, but with real, genuine amusement. It came from deep in my chest. Let you go? I echoed. You think you're in a position to bargain? And Serena? You really think she's something you can trade? Like she's yours to give? I stepped closer, voice dropping just enough for only him to hear. You already lost her, Adrian. And everything else, is coming next. Julian, Adrian said, trying hard to soften his tone. You and I never really had bad blood. All this, everything, it was just about Serena. I'm willing to cut ties with her. Completely. For good. You let me go, I let her go. Everyone wins, doesn't it? No bad blood? Not in this lifetime, maybe. But what about the last one? He kept going. Besides, the Ashfords and the Cades have a long-standing partnership. You wouldn't really throw all that away just to settle a personal score, would you? Ah. And there it was. The shift. The arrogance. The thinly veiled threat. I tilted my head slightly, smiled, and spoke in a tone that was all silk and no warmth. Sure, I said. Just one condition. You don't see Serena again. Not once. Not ever. Adrian blinked, surprised. You're serious? I nodded. I said it. And you know my reputation, I never go back on my word. He stared at me for a moment. Then, slowly, relief spread across his face. Deal, he said. You've got my word. He reached out to shake my hand, as if we just concluded a fair business deal between two equals. I gave him a smile. Something clean. Something final. And I let him go. He walked off, lighter, practically whistling, like a man who thought he'd just walked away from the edge of a cliff. I stood there and watched him disappear into the crowd. Then, slowly, I reached into the inside pocket of my jacket and pulled out a slim black recording device. Still warm. Still blinking. Every word he'd said, captured in perfect clarity. This trick? Elena's idea. She'd called it insurance. And I called it backup. Because sure. I said I wouldn't move against Adrian. But Damien? He wasn't bound by my promises. And something told me he was more than ready. Julian, there's an award ceremony tonight, film and television. I got an invite. Come with me? The message was from Elena. Since our partnership began, we'd grown surprisingly close. Maybe it was the shared enemy. Maybe it was the easy rhythm of our conversations. Either way, we talked often, sometimes about business, sometimes about nothing at all. I didn't hesitate to reply. Of course I'd go. An event like this? Serena would absolutely be there. And I figured, if she was already freezing, why not toss on another layer of ice? When I arrived, the red carpet was just starting to buzz. And right there, standing by the entrance, like fate had written it herself, were Elena and Serena, facing one another. Perfect timing. I walked over, smooth as ever, just in time to join the conversation. Well, I said, letting my voice carry just enough, Miss Vale. Fancy seeing you here. I glanced her up and down, impeccably dressed, of course, but brittle around the edges. Let me guess, I continued, still chasing the Best Actress title. You really don't give up, do you? She stiffened, but I didn't stop. You do realize those awards aren't handed out for showing up. You either need real talent, or the right people backing you. I tilted my head slightly. So tell me, Serena, which of those do you have? Silence. The kind that makes people around you listen. Because the truth was, Serena had neither. Once, I'd made sure she got her moment. I'd poured money into campaigns, pulled strings until the entire industry bent in her direction. She walked home with that golden trophy, sure. But it didn't take long before people started whispering. Bought. Rigged. Hollow. They weren't wrong. And yes, Adrian could have bought her another one. If he'd tried. But he didn't. Not after what happened. Just weeks earlier, Adrian had publicly announced their breakup. Clean. Swift. Brutal. The scandal shook the tabloids. Especially because it came right after his dramatic proposal. One minute she was flaunting the ring. The next, discarded. No explanation. No second chances. Just, gone. Word had it Serena had gone crying to the Cade family more than once after the breakup. Begging. Screaming. Demanding to see Adrian. She never even made it past the gate. That had been part of Adrian's deal with me, after all. He kept his distance. She got silence. Tonight, Elena stood beside me in a stunning couture gown, arms folded, posture like a queen surveying a peasant rebellion. Her expression as she stared Serena down? Pure disdain. Serena, on the other hand, looked like she'd been carved from rage and desperation. Her carefully done makeup barely masked the panic in her eyes. "You arrogant," she started, voice cracking. But Elena cut her off mid-syllable. "Oh," she said, arching an eyebrow. "Feeling brave again, Miss Vale?" Her voice dropped just enough for others to lean in and listen. "Are we doing this here? In front of all these cameras? Because if you're that eager for another slap, I'd be happy to help. The only question is, do you even have any dignity left to lose?" Serena's lips snapped shut. She stumbled backward a few steps, the threat more effective than any blow. I didn't spare her a glance. Instead, I turned to Elena, cool and composed. "No need to waste time," I said. "Let's go. We're already expected inside." Elena's eyes lit up with a touch of something brighter than satisfaction. "You came," she said warmly, linking her arm through mine without hesitation. We were just turning to enter the venue when Serena scrambled forward. "Julian." Her voice was small now, uncertain. "I know you know," she said, swallowing hard. "Please, just tell me. Tell me what's going to happen. I can handle it, I swear. I need to know." I gave her a smile. One that didn't quite reach my eyes. "Of course," I said lightly. "It's nothing really. Just a small favor someone asked me to help with. But if you're asking whether this award has your name on it." I leaned in slightly, just enough. "It doesn't." Serena stood frozen, clinging to the last threads of hope, until the ceremony began, and the host stepped on stage, envelope in hand. "And this year's Best Actress goes to..." The name rang out. Crisp. Clear. Not hers. And just like that, the color drained from Serena's face. She didn't cry. Not yet. But her world cracked in half, right there in the glittering floodlights. After the ceremony, as the crowd began to thin and champagne flutes clinked with hollow celebration, Serena stepped in front of me. "Julian," she said, her tone soft but urgent. "I broke up with Adrian." I raised a brow. "I know," I said, flatly. "So?" "Of course I knew. I had made sure of it." She pressed on, her voice gaining confidence, as if she were delivering the climax of a grand romantic confession. "I know you still love me." I blinked. That one, I didn't see coming. "I know," she continued, eyes shining with certainty, "everything you've done, all of this, was because I hurt you. Turning the industry against me, parading Elena around, having her slap me in public. It was all just revenge for the engagement party. But people only go to such lengths when they still care, right? When they still feel something." She took a step closer, and her voice softened into that honeyed version of herself I'd once fallen for. "This time, it's really over between me and Adrian. There's no going back. I'll never forgive him. I'm done." Her gaze locked with mine, hopeful, almost radiant in her delusion. "Julian, if you still want me, if you'll say the word, I'll marry you. Right now. I'll say yes." She waited. Eyes wide. Heart open. But the answer had been decided long before she asked. "Miss Vale," I said, my voice cool and razor clean, "I told you once, I wouldn't chase you again. And I asked you not to chase me either. I was very clear about that, wasn't I?" I paused. Then let the words twist in, one final blade. "Assuming your cognitive functions are still intact. I trust you understood me the first time." Her face crumbled. The color drained. The smile vanished. What was left was ash, dead, brittle, and hollow. I didn't wait for her to speak again. I reached into my pocket, pulled out a small object, and tossed it to her without ceremony. Then I turned. Elena was waiting at the edge of the room, calm, composed, radiant in the aftermath. I walked toward her without looking back. I left her with a small object. A voice recorder. Inside, the full truth. Adrian's words from that night, his smug, whispered betrayal, promising to return Serena to me like a pawn. His confession, his surrender. All of it. Captured. Preserved. Delivered. She must have listened to it the moment I walked away. Because just a minute later, Serena collapsed onto the floor. At first, she sat perfectly still, like her body had short-circuited. Then, she started laughing. Loud. Uncontrolled. Borderline hysterical. People passing by slowed, then swerved to avoid her. "She's lost it," someone whispered. All that because she didn't win Best Actress? Yikes. Mental breakdown. I'm out. And just like that, the woman who once graced every tabloid cover became the cautionary tale, the celebrity no one wanted to touch. On the drive home, Elena tilted her head toward me, amused. "Well," she said with a smirk, "feel better now?" I smiled, eyes on the road. "Yeah," I said. That was satisfying. But satisfaction wasn't the finish line. Not yet. In our past life, 3 people had died. And this time, I wouldn't stop at just public humiliation. I wanted ruin. I wanted them stripped of everything, money, name, power. And when there was truly nothing left, I wanted them to face the same darkness they once left me in. Shocking collapse, ex-starlet Serena Vale spirals after Best Actress snub. The headline splashed across Twitter and gossip blogs like wildfire. Her manic episode went viral within hours. Clips. Commentary. Speculation. Memes. The story sat atop trending lists for 2 full weeks. Of course, Elena had a hand in that. When I found out, I didn't stop her. I just smiled, and let the world burn a little brighter. I picked up my phone and dialed Damien. It was time. Time to close the net. "Don't worry, Julian," Damien said smoothly on the other end, "he's done. I'll make sure Adrian gets dragged out of the Cade family with nothing to his name." And I believed him. In the past few months, Damien had turned his once failing company into a rising star. Howard had taken notice, enough to hand over half of Cade Corporation's assets for Damien to manage. Behind the scenes, though, Damien had been quietly sabotaging Adrian's every move. Every deal Adrian thought he had in the bag mysteriously fell through. Every connection burned. Every investor gone cold. By now, the contrast was glaring. Damien was the golden child. Adrian was the rotting apple. Howard's patience had thinned. All we needed was the spark. And that spark? Adrian's bloodline. Yes, Adrian was technically Howard's son. But what Damien delivered wasn't just a forged paternity test, it was a folder of real evidence. Photos. Transactions. Testimonies. Proof that Adrian's mother, while living under Howard's roof, had been sleeping with at least 3 other men. The documentation was solid. Howard exploded with rage. He never even questioned it. Within hours, Adrian was stripped of his family name, kicked out of the Cade estate, and had every asset he ever controlled clawed back. Just like that, the prince became a beggar. And without Howard's protection? Adrian was nothing but a soft target. Damien wasn't one to waste opportunities. He was cold. Calculated. The kind of man who didn't just win, he made sure you knew you'd lost. I didn't need to lift a finger from here on out. Adrian's fall was inevitable. And merciless. It was Serena's turn. I'd been waiting for someone to approach me first. And sure enough, he didn't make me wait long. Julian. Trent raised his glass to me with a polite nod, watching my face for a sign, anything. You really plan to leave Serena alone? He asked cautiously. Just, let her go? He hadn't forgotten what happened back then. He'd been holding it in for this moment, unsure whether I'd stop him. I took his glass. Downed it in one go. There's nothing between me and Serena, I said calmly. Only blood debts. Trent lit up, laughter bubbling out of him as he tossed back 2 more drinks. Got it. Loud and clear. I appreciate it, Julian. Really? I gave a small nod. It was time. Serena's downfall was about to begin. 1 year later, 2 headlines detonated across every major news outlet and gossip site. Washed-up actress found dead on the street, suspected alcohol overdose. Adrian Cade, disgraced illegitimate heir, confirmed dead by suicide. And the date? The same day Elena and I got engaged. Under the gentle but persistent nudging from both sides of the family, and, truthfully, a bit of affection between us, we finally made it official. Hey, husband, Elena said, smiling as she looped her arm through mine. Hey, wife. I smiled back. The midsummer breeze rippled across the lake behind us, catching in Elena's hair, carrying a scent of roses and champagne. Everything was, just right. Balanced. Settled. And if there were still ghosts from the past, well, they were buried where they belonged.